It's not an exaggeration to say that living in a foreign country is the single greatest thing I've done for my personal development. Ever since I was a kid, I had a strong desire to travel the world. I was fascinated by other cultures, and I wanted to experience all the world had to offer me. Maybe it's because my parents told me stories of their time spent abroad in their youth. My father living in Europe, and my mother having traveled through Latin America. When I imagined my future, I wanted to be somebody who could travel the world, living out adventures and seeing the wonders of the world I read about in textbooks with my own eyes. But I never thought it would be possible for me. I've always been a realist, and to be honest, I used to just think of myself as a plain, average person, not some adventurer who would get to live out my silly travel fantasies. I mean, traveling is expensive, and I was always taught to save money, that my money should go towards college, or a house, or my retirement. And I was also taught that I should get a safe, comfortable office job. And in the United States, we get 2 weeks of vacation a year, which doesn't leave much time for backpacking Europe. But when you really want something, the universe has a funny way of bringing it to you. As the writer Joseph Campbell puts it, follow your bliss, and the universe will open doors where there were only walls. In Campbell's book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, he presents the idea of the monomyth. Campbell studied different religions and myths throughout history and found that each one of them follow basically the same plot, the hero's journey. There are 3 main stages of the hero's journey: the call, the quest, and the return. During the call, the heroes in their normal world, living their life as they always have been. They feel some kind of discomfort. They may not know it yet, but deep down, they're ready for a transformation. Then, suddenly, the hero is visited by a messenger, or herald, or is faced with a challenge and is forced to embark on an adventure. The call signifies that destiny has summoned the hero and transferred his spiritual center of gravity from within the pale of his society to a zone unknown. Or in simpler terms, the call is when you're presented with an opportunity to leave your comfort zone. For me, that was in my sophomore year of college, during my Spanish 2120 course. I was in the class because I needed at least 1 year of a foreign language to finish my degree. But at the time, I had no intentions of continuing my Spanish education after that initial year. I mean, to be honest, I wasn't exactly a quick study. But then one day, I walked into class, and there was this guy I had never seen before, standing in front of the classroom. He was bald, with thick-rimmed glasses and thin lips. He kind of looked like a sea turtle. Very herald-like. Once the class started, I learned that this man was from the Spanish department, and he came to give a presentation about a study abroad opportunity in Ecuador. My discomfort at that time was my desire to travel. This presentation was my call to action. It was a 2-month intensive immersion in which I lived with a host family that spoke only Spanish, and I took classes that were taught entirely in Spanish. At that time, I knew nothing about Ecuador, other than that it was located in South America. But the whole program just seemed so exotic and exciting to me. It seemed like a real opportunity for the type of adventure I was itching to have. And it felt worth it for me to go because after those 2 months, I would only be a few credits away from a Spanish minor. So I applied to the program. And I wrote about that feeling that I had, that itch to explore and see new places in my application essay, and I got accepted. But the program wasn't cheap. The family I was going to be living with provided a home and 3 home-cooked meals a day, so they needed to be paid, and the price of the program covered tuition and any excursions that we took while we were there. So I got to work. At the end of the semester, I got a gardening job back home that I worked during the daytime, and at night I delivered pizzas in my 2002 Honda Civic. I saved as much as I could for about 2 months before I got on a plane and headed for Guayaquil, Ecuador, and my quest had begun. Campbell points out that on every hero's journey, there's a road of trials that the hero must face. It is by going down into the abyss that we recover the treasures of life. Where you stumble, there lies your treasure. Now, I had only left the country 2 times prior to that trip. One was a family trip to Canada, and the other was to Mexico. And both of these were completely controlled. And to be honest, this study abroad experience was pretty controlled. I had my living arrangement set up for me, all my classes and excursions were already pre-planned, and I was with a group of other students from my school. But even all that did not prepare me for the culture shock that I would experience. Going from the suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio to living in the middle of a big Latin American city is a big change. Everything was different, not just the language. My Spanish wasn't that good, and I needed to improve or not be able to interact with the world around me. For the first time, I lived in a shared space with a family that wasn't my own. It was very much so sink or swim. And in a lot of ways, I felt like a kid again, sort of like a rebirth. The devotee at the moment of entry into a temple undergoes a metamorphosis. His secular character remains without. He sheds it as a snake its slough. There were plenty of things that I took for granted living in the US that I missed in Ecuador. The water heater in my host family didn't work quite right, so I was taking cold showers most of the time. And this might be kind of gross to you, but in Ecuador and a lot of Latin America, the sewage pipes are not built to handle toilet paper. So when you do your business, the toilet paper goes into a bin on the side of the toilet, not in the toilet. And South America is a completely different environment with different bacteria that my body had never been exposed to. So inevitably, I got sick. It started with a stomach bug, and then it turned into some kind of sinus infection where my nose was like a leaky faucet for yellow snot for 2 weeks. Cold showers, toilet paper bins, and a runny nose may not be slaying dragons, but in many ways, this was a road of trials on my hero's journey. The climax of my journey would have been after the 2-month study abroad experience ended. I used some of the money that I'd saved up that summer for my first ever solo trip. My plan was to fly from Guayaquil, Ecuador to Lima, Peru, where I stayed the night at a hostel. Then I had a flight from Lima to Cusco, where I stayed in another hostel. From Cusco, I took a train to Aguascalientes, the town at the bottom of Machu Picchu, where I would be staying for the next few days. It had always been a dream of mine to visit Machu Picchu after learning about it in my early Spanish classes. For whatever reason, ancient cultures and civilizations just always fascinated me. But Machu Picchu wasn't exactly easy to arrive to. I opted to save my money and get my exercise by taking the rock stairway that leads all the way up from Aguascalientes to the Incan ruins at the top of the mountain. But the ruins open at 6 a.m., and I wanted to get as much time as possible in the ruins. So while the smarter travelers who decided to take the bus up the mountain got to sleep in, I was up at 4 a.m. for a hike. Imagine using the stair stepper machine for 2 hours straight. And that's the climb up the mountain. But I made it to the top, and I got to take this epic photo with a llama. This is the release potential within us all, and which anyone can attain through herohood. So when I came back to the States after my first experience abroad, my entire perspective had shifted. Not only did my Spanish improve, but I met incredible people, saw amazing things I never would have seen, and faced challenges I had never faced before. But I'm not going to say that I found myself in Ecuador, because honestly, I didn't. I think that's a big misconception about travel, is that you'll go on some big epic adventure and come back as a different person. When I got back, I was just as confused about life as ever. But that journey had affected me in ways that were imperceivable to me at the time, and set me on the path that I'm on today. If I hadn't gone to Ecuador, I probably would have never gotten a Spanish minor, which gave me the opportunity to teach English in Spain after college. If I never went to Spain, I probably would have never started this YouTube channel. But unlike Harry Potter and Frodo, our stories don't end at the end of the hero's journey. In fact, I believe we face many hero's journeys in our lifetime, whether that be moving abroad, or starting a new job, a new relationship, or a new fitness program. We are faced with challenges throughout our lives that ask us to leave our old life behind, so we can be born again better. After I got back to the States, I didn't relate to my old friends in the same way, and my itch for travel didn't go away. It actually only grew. But as Campbell puts it, we must be willing to let go of the life we planned, so as to have the life that is waiting for us. Thank you so much for watching this video. My stats show me that 97.3% of you guys are not subscribed, and I'm on the road to get 5,000 subscribers. So if you got any value out of this video, consider subscribing and hitting the bell button so you get notified every time that I upload. If you want to see the other ways that living abroad can change your life, check out this video. And until the next one, give travel.